How does a superpower collapse without being invaded, defeated, or conquered? The Soviet Union didn't fall because of a final war or a single leader's mistake. It collapsed because its economy slowly stopped working. Long before the Soviet flag was lowered in 1991, the system that kept the country alive was already failing. This is the story of how economics, not armies, really killed the Soviet Union. At its height, the Soviet Union controlled nearly 1/6 of the Earth's land surface. It rivaled the United States in military power, led a global ideological movement, and possessed enough nuclear weapons to end civilization. From the outside, it looked permanent, unbreakable, inevitable. But inside, the Soviet economy was quietly breaking down. To understand why, we need to understand how the Soviet economic system actually worked. From the beginning, the Soviet Union rejected market economics. Instead of prices, competition, and private ownership, it relied on central planning. The state decided what would be produced, how much, where it would go, and at what price. Factories didn't compete with each other. They followed plans. In theory, this system was meant to eliminate waste, inequality, and exploitation. In practice, it created entirely new problems. Central planners had to make decisions for an economy that stretched across multiple time zones and included hundreds of millions of people. No matter how educated or well-intentioned they were, they could never accurately predict real demand. What people actually wanted rarely matched what the state planned to produce. This led to chronic shortages. Basic consumer goods were often unavailable. Food, clothing, household items, even toilet paper could be difficult to find. Long lines became a normal part of life. People didn't shop when they needed something. They shopped when something appeared. At the same time, factories were rewarded for meeting production targets, not for quality or usefulness. If a factory was told to produce a certain number of shoes, it produced them, even if they didn't fit, fell apart, or were the wrong type. Hitting the quota mattered more than satisfying real needs. This system also destroyed incentives. Workers earned roughly the same regardless of performance. Innovation was risky because failure could be punished. Success brought little reward. Over time, productivity slowed, motivation collapsed, and inefficiency became normal. To compensate, informal networks emerged. Bribes, favors, and personal connections became essential for getting things done. This underground economy kept daily life functioning, but it also undermined the legitimacy of the system itself. While consumer life stagnated, the Soviet Union poured enormous resources into heavy industry and the military. Steel, coal, tanks, missiles, and factories were prioritized above all else. This helped the Soviet Union industrialize quickly and win World War II, but it created a deeply unbalanced economy. The Cold War made this imbalance even worse. Competing with the United States meant maintaining a massive military, funding allies around the world, and racing to keep up technologically. The arms race consumed an enormous share of national output. A large portion of the Soviet economy produced goods that never improved civilian life at all. This kind of spending might be sustainable for a short period, but over decades, it drained the system. By the 1970s, the Soviet economy had entered stagnation. Growth slowed. Innovation lagged behind the West. New technologies like computers and advanced manufacturing spread slowly or not at all. The system that once delivered rapid progress now struggled just to maintain itself. Meanwhile, the comparison with the West became impossible to hide. Western economies produced not just weapons, but consumer abundance. Cars, electronics, appliances, and rising living standards became visible symbols of success. Even with censorship, Soviet citizens could see that life elsewhere looked easier, freer, and more prosperous. This comparison mattered more than ideology. People didn't need to read economic theory to understand that something was wrong. They experienced it every day in empty shelves, cramped housing, and decaying infrastructure. The Soviet leadership knew the economy was failing, but reform was dangerous. The entire political system depended on the idea that central planning worked. Admitting failure threatened not just policies, but power. As a result, problems were hidden, statistics were manipulated, and difficult decisions were delayed. By the time serious reforms were attempted, the situation was already fragile. When Mikhail Gorbachev came to power in the 1980s, he inherited an economy that could no longer support the state built on top of it. His reforms aimed to make the system more efficient and flexible, but they exposed weaknesses faster than they fixed them. Reducing controls disrupted supply chains. Opening discussion revealed how deep the problems ran. The state lost its ability to command obedience without delivering results. At the same time, the Soviet Union could no longer afford its empire. Eastern Europe required subsidies, cheap energy, and military support. As economic pressure grew, maintaining control became too expensive. When the Soviet leadership stopped using force to hold these countries in line, the entire structure unraveled almost immediately. Inside the Soviet Union, the economic crisis intensified social and national tensions. Republics that had long sent resources to Moscow began questioning why they should continue. Independence movements gained strength not just from ideology, but from economic frustration. By 1991, the Soviet state existed mostly on paper. The economy could not provide stability. The government could not enforce authority. The system that had promised security and equality had delivered scarcity and stagnation instead. When the Soviet Union officially dissolved, it felt sudden to the world. But economically, it had been dying for years. The collapse of the Soviet Union was not proof that history ends or that one system is perfect. It was proof that no state, no matter how powerful, can survive if its economy stops working for its people. Military strength can hide economic weakness for a time. Ideology can delay reality for decades. But eventually, economics always wins. The Soviet Union didn't lose a war. It lost the ability to function. And that is how economics really killed the USSR.